Hey, thanks everybody for joining us today on Live Music Nation podcast, Theater and Event Edition. Today we're with Carrie. Carrie, how do you say your last name?
Houk.
Carrie Houk
Carrie.
from Tennessee Williams Festival in St. Louis. Carrie, let's just start with you. Where did you grow up and give us a little bit of your career background up until now?
Well, I was born in St. Louis, Missouri, and I loved theater since I was a kid. And, in those days in St. Louis, there wasn't a whole lot of theater. We'd get touring shows at the American Theater. I think there was another one then too, possibly. And the Muni, we have a giant, and I know it's nationally known, 11,000 plus amphitheater called in the olden days it was the Municipal Opera, but they perform Broadway shows mostly. And they're not touring shows. They're produced there, and most of the time have been. And then now we have the Fox Theater, which is an amazing old movie palace that was converted to a theatrical space where the touring Broadway shows come in now. But, the small professional theater scene in St. Louis has really flourished. I grew up in St. Louis. I went to school in St. Louis, but after college, I moved to New York to be an actress and spent a number of years there, and then moved to Los Angeles and did it there. And then I came back here for about 1 year just to regroup and started doing radio, which I really liked. But I didn't know if that was going to be the rest of my life, but I was sort of tired of auditioning, etc. So life took me to Chicago after that year here. Voice format. But it somehow evolved that I opened a casting business, and I became a casting director, and sort of realized that that was my calling. And in those days in Chicago, they had just opened the film office, and the state of Illinois had opened a film office, and Chicago was really flourishing as a place to shoot films, commercials, TV, etc. So I had a flourishing career there as a casting director. And then life brought me back to St. Louis. When my daughter turned a certain age, I wanted her to go to school here and be near her grandma and her aunties, etc. So we moved back, and in those days, this was in the 90s, St. Louis had this giant film industry.
Really?
They had opened a film office, as had the state of Missouri, and the politicians here really encouraged film shooting. So we had major motion pictures. We had Universal here, Disney, NBC did a giant miniseries here that kept me employed for months and months and months and months. So it was sort of a nice heyday in my very own hometown. Then life took me back to Chicago. And I started teaching. I've taught here at Webster University for 20 years. But I was at Columbia College Chicago, and I was commuting back and forth. By now, my daughter's grown up. And life brought me back to St. Louis full time. And I thought, well, now what am I going to do? Because the film industry here had dried up.
Okay.
Completely. So I got a grant to produce a Tennessee Williams play. Williams was, he wasn't born here, but he was raised here for 19 years of his young life. And I consider him ours in some respects. And I love his work as an actor. Williams was my favorite. And I never understood why St. Louis didn't honor him in a bigger way. So I got a grant to produce a sort of unknown Williams play called Stairs to the Roof, where most of the locales are in St. Louis. And I knew the audiences would love the St. Louis references in the play. And plus, it's a really well-written play and one of my favorites. So we sold out a 3-week run. It was my first job as a theatrical producer. And everyone here encouraged me to start a festival. So I didn't really want to, but I did. I did it. And now we're launching into our 8th season coming. I mean, we have events starting in a few weeks, but our main festival is September 7th through 17th. of
Okay.
2023. Yeah.
Okay, good. So let's talk about the festival. Why is that so important to your community and also just the general community? So not just the theatrical community, but your community in general.
Well, I think that we're, again, because Williams is one of the country's and the world's most famous playwrights. I think it's important to keep his name alive, and I think it's important to establish the fact that he was part of the St. Louis artistic landscape, you know, going way back and should continue to be so. Um, and you know, I just believe in cultivating new audiences for theater because, as we all know, and especially during the pandemic, a lot of the content on television is magnificent these days. So it's a hard sell to get people out of their houses to see live theater. And yet, when you see a live play, there's really nothing like it. The same with music, I think you would agree with, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, during the pandemic, we had definite challenges because we weren't allowed to perform in theaters during that 2 year period. It really was a 2 year period for us. So what I did maybe three in a way, because even this last year we were dealing with so many COVID restrictions with the Actors Equity Union. But during the pandemic, I went back to my radio roots and I produced Tennessee Williams plays for radio. I didn't want to do Zoom things because to me it wasn't really theater. But you know, the radio theater goes way back. I mean, and I don't mean just actors sitting reading from a script. These were fully produced, pre-recorded, edited, sound designed, full radio production. So we did 2 series of those during 2020 and built a new audience that didn't really know about us. So then by the time we came back to performing the festival in the following summer, we had new people. And that's really, again, you go back to why are we doing this? I don't want theater to die. I want Tennessee Williams to live and maybe look at ways to produce him in a more contemporary way. And I do think it can help put St. Louis even more on the artistic map in the United States. We're a very culturally rich city. And my intention when I started the festival was to do it, of course, for the St. Louis community, but to also have it be a destination festival.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that
Really,
makes sense. That makes sense. Very good. So, how many years has this been in existence now?
we're launching into our 8th season.
Okay. All right. So, in the past 8 seasons, what are some significant moments that have stood out to you that you have been like, you know what? This is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm going to continue to press for this.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I was just talking about this with a bunch of theater people the other day. It wasn't probably it was the moment where I realized all of the hardship, heartache, hard work that has gone into this. And as you know, I mean, I'm not a kid and I could be retired now. I don't want to be, but there was the production we did in the oh gosh, okay, late summer of 2021, we had to perform outside. So what I did, Jake, I asked the woman who owned the building where the Tennessee Williams family moved to when they moved to St. Louis. And it's the building in which the play The Glass Menagerie, probably his most famous play, it was based on his time in this building. And it still exists in the Central West End of St. Louis. And the woman, I'll never be grateful enough to her. She said yes to everything I asked for. I said, we're going to do the play on the back of the building where the fire escapes are that he wrote about. And some of the scenes literally take place on the fire escapes. And we'll build the stage out from the back of the building in the parking lot. And then the audience will sit in the periphery in the parking lot. And we could only seat 100 people because of COVID restrictions and distancing.
Right.
And remember all that, even outside, and they still had to be masked. But I'm telling you, to see the Glass Menagerie, fully lit, fully produced, with the moon shining above, and the neighbor people who I thought would be upset by the disruption, just hanging on every word night after night after night. I thought this has all been worth it. Like the
Yeah.
mechanic across the street would just stand in the middle of the street every night and watch. And I'd say, come on in. There was a homeless guy that would show up every night on his bike with all his stuff hanging off of his bike. And he had a little lawn chair. And again, we'd invite them in, but they wanted to experience the magic.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. I got you. Okay. So I am in live entertainment, so I can appreciate a live performance as great as any. Carrie, for you, what is the best Broadway production that you've ever seen in your entire life?
Oh, okay. Let me think. I'll tell you, there are a few that really stand out. She's dead now. And I had the amazing good fortune of getting to meet her 3 times in my life and actually spend time with her. I saw a show called Masterclass by Terrence McNally. And it wasn't a one-woman show, but it might as well have been, based on the life of Maria Callas, the opera singer. Zoe Caldwell was the performer. And I mean, it was goosebumpy. I mean, thrilling, like hanging on every word.
Wow.
I saw Brian Dennehy in Death of a Salesman. That was, again, just a tour de force. But I go back to my youth, and the first play I saw on Broadway was Plaza Suite by Neil Simon.
There you go.
I had never been in a New York theater, and I didn't realize that they're not like giant size. They're these tiny little jewel box, historic places to see live theater, and every seat is good. And I don't know. I think there's nothing like it.
Oh yeah, no, I think people would agree. Those are all great picks. I just made a social media post last week about what's something that you never thought you'd enjoy until you tried it. And Broadway play for me was it. Like I still go to one and I'm like, oh man, maybe I should be doing acting instead of music, because it's the same thing. The connection with your audience is so real when it's done.
You feel their energy.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in rehearsal for a play, and even when you're already moved into the theater and you have all the tech in place and it still isn't what it's going to be until the audience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's very cool. Very good. Carrie, how can people find out more about the Tennessee Williams Festival?
Go to our website, twstl.org.
Hey, very good.
WSTL.org. We're doing our radio series this March. We have a big cabaret in late May, June. And then our festival is September 7th through 17th. We're in a beautiful new theater this year. It's a huge step up, and we're very excited about it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Very good. Thanks for being on with us today, Carrie.
Thank you. Have a great day and weekend.
Well, baby, I'm on it with a bottle of